Level 1. The disposable. The phone rings at 3:14 a.m. You don't ask who it is. In this industry, a call in the dead of night only means one thing. Someone fucked up, and they fucked up bad. You step into the presidential suite of a penthouse. The air is a heavy cocktail of expensive perfume, aged whiskey, and that sharp metallic tang of blood. On the hand-woven Persian rug, a dark stain is blooming like ink through fiber. A man sits on a leather sofa, his hands trembling. He's a face you see on the news every day, a tech titan worth 11 figures. He looks at you, and there's no authority in his eyes, only the raw, pre-collapse terror of a man facing ruin. "Help me," he rasps. "Name your price." You don't look at him, and you don't answer. You open your briefcase and lay out your kit. UV lights, high-concentration hydrogen peroxide, industrial-grade enzymatic cleaners, and a set of scalpels. Rule number 1. You aren't here to judge, you're here to erase. You snap on your latex gloves and get to work. Kneeling on the cold marble, you scrub every microsplatter off the wainscoting. It's more than manual labor. It's a war at the molecular level. Every drop of blood contains enough DNA to bury this man for life. You have to treat them like fine art. It takes 4 hours to process the body that is no longer breathing. You vacuum seal it with clinical precision, ensuring not a single scent molecule escapes. Then you scrub the room's soul. Fingerprints, stray hairs, a shattered wine glass. By sunrise, the room has returned to its cold, inorganic perfection. No body, no blood. Even the oxygen levels in the air have been recalibrated. As you leave, a check is waiting on the table. The number is more than you used to earn in 3 years. You go back to your cheap rental apartment and shower 3 times, scrubbing until your skin is raw. Looking in the mirror, you realize the average person expression in your eyes is already half gone. You realize that at the altitude of that penthouse, the law doesn't exist. Up there, truth is determined by the level of cleanliness. Right now, you're just a high-paid dishwasher, scraping the filth off the world's most expensive plates. Level 2. The Trace Specialist. 3 months later, you no longer have to scrub floors on your knees. You have a specialized team now, though they don't even know each other's names. You've graduated to more sophisticated tools, laser ablation units, EMP devices that rewrite surveillance hard drives, and geolocation spoofing software to manufacture ironclad alibis. You aren't dealing with accidents anymore. You're dealing with vulnerabilities. The CEO of a pharmaceutical giant overdoses on an unreleased narcotic at a party, leaving 3 young models unconscious. You take over the scene. You don't call an ambulance. You call a private clinic you own. You start learning how to rewrite reality. You don't just scrub physical traces, you scrub digital ones. You breach the hotel's cloud servers and delete every record of that elevator for the past 6 hours. You inject the victims with neutralizing agents and plant a fabricated memory of an allergic reaction. Your rates double. You stop taking checks and start accepting cryptocurrency. Your accounts in Cayman Island servers bloat like a balloon. Morality becomes an expensive luxury you can't afford. You tell yourself you're just a service provider. If people were smart enough not to make mistakes, you wouldn't exist. You start to crave the feeling, holding the fate of the powerful in your hands. When you see that CEO giving a sanctimonious speech at a press conference, you're the only one who knows he was sobbing at your feet 2 weeks ago. The high of the secret is better than the money. But you find you can't sleep. You close your eyes, and instead of dollar signs, you see the real lives of others that you forcibly erased. Now you are a technician, sewing up the tears in the fabric of reality. Level 3. The Crisis Architect. A year in, and you don't wait for the phone to ring. You predict the crisis. You're an architect now. You build fail-safe systems for the world's elite families. You install automated cleanup units on their private yachts, summer villas, and jets. If an incident occurs, the system triggers automatically, releasing chemical mists that dissolve all biological samples. You're dealing with political assets now. A crown prince is involved in an unspeakable scandal in a hotel controlled by your client. Handled poorly, it turns into a diplomatic war that could spike global oil prices. You don't reach for the detergent. You reach for influence. You arrange an electrical fire that guts the entire floor, letting the physical evidence vanish with the smoke. You bribe the local fire chief to sign off on a perfect report. You even arrange a patsy, a gambler with a terminal diagnosis desperate to leave a fortune for his family, who confesses to accidentally starting the. At this level, you understand a fundamental truth. The best way to clean a trace isn't to make it disappear, but to give it a logical, legal, and completely fake replacement. Your sense of power swells. You aren't a servant anymore. You're a partner. You sit in off-the-record meetings next to the people who decide where the world goes. You wear Savile Row suits and frequent the most exclusive clubs. But you find you can't relate to normal people anymore. To you, every person is a potential stain, every movement a risk to be calculated. You even suspect your own bodyguards. You sweep your office for bugs every morning. Your loneliness is a chronic poison seeping into your marrow. You're a director, helming a play called Order. Level 4. The Secret Trustee. Now you don't just erase the past, you manage the future. You are the secret trustee for the ultra-wealthy. You sit at the center of a massive web of secrets that could destroy entire nations. These secrets aren't a burden. They're your currency. You don't need to show up at scenes anymore. A few swipes on a tablet, and a whistleblower screaming on social media disappears. Not a physical disappearance, but a social death. You wipe their credit, turn their degree into waste paper, and send their family-forged evidence of child pornography. At this level, you've mastered preventive cleaning. If a client's competitor becomes too threatening, you eliminate them by cleaning their reputation. You find the smallest smudge in their life, then you amplify it, distort it, and broadcast it. You realize it's much easier to ruin a man than it is to save one. Your net worth has hit 9 figures. You buy a private island. No extradition treaties, no surveillance. You think you'll find freedom there. You're wrong. On that island, you sleep with a pistol in your hand. You realize that the more secrets you hold, the more you become a prisoner to them. The titans you serve don't look at you with gratitude. They look at you with terror. They know you have your hand around their throats. And you know that the moment you let your guard down, they'll clean you up just as easily as you cleaned the blood off those rugs. You start to miss the 3 a.m. calls with the bleach and the rag. Back then, your enemy was just a few drops of blood, not the shadow side of human civilization. Now, you are a jailer, guarding a monitor room full of demons. Level 5. The System. Purifier. One step higher, and you aren't an individual anymore. You are the system. You aren't hired by people, you're hired by structures. You work for opaque international organizations, handling major incidents that would destabilize global finance or energy security. Your tools are the law and time. If a private mining company causes an ecological disaster in Africa that kills tens of thousands, you don't bury bodies. You rewrite the country's environmental laws. You use lobbyists to push a retroactive immunity bill through Parliament. You buy every major local media outlet until the disaster is remembered as a necessary industrial upgrade. You've learned batch cleaning. You can silence an entire class of people or snuff out an entire region's resistance. You don't use hydrogen peroxide anymore. You use inflation, information overload, and manufactured entertainment. You find that when people are busy struggling to survive, they don't have the energy to find the truth. At this stage, your sense of self blurs. You have no name, only a designation. You have legal identities in 12 countries, each one perfect, each one flawless. You see yourself as the immune system of society. You tell yourself that everything you do is for the stability of the world. Without people like you to handle the ugly waste, civilization would choke on its own greed. This self-justification brings a false peace. You no longer feel guilt because you believe you are exercising a higher form of justice. But sitting alone in the first-class cabin of your private jet, looking at the clouds, you realize you don't remember why you started. You've won every game, but you've lost the ability to feel anything. Now, you are a tuner, forcibly silencing the world's noise. Level 6. The Shadow Arbiter. At Level 6, you possess the power to define crime. If you clean something well enough, then legally, historically, and even in the eyes of God, it never happened. You control the source of information. You own the definition of truth. You are the person whispering in the halls of Davos, in the vaults of private banks, and in the corridors of the Pentagon. You don't handle specific cases. You handle geopolitics. You will destroy a developing nation's entire government to protect a strategic partner's reputation. You will manufacture a small war just to cover up a trillion-dollar money laundering operation. The power in your hands has transcended money. Money is just a string of meaningless zeros now. What you want is balance. You play the world like a game of chess, every move impacting the lives of millions. Your loneliness has evolved into something divine. You feel that mortal emotions, love, hate, pity, are just inefficient programming errors. You have completely formatted yourself. The irony is that the closer you get to godhood, the more you feel the threat of the void. You realize that this clean, orderly world you've maintained is built on layer upon layer of lies. You start to hallucinate. You feel as though the people you've erased are watching you from the shadows of the walls. You hire the best psychiatrist, but before he can speak, you find 3 stains in his file. So, you clean him. You are the cleanest man in the world, and the emptiest. You are a judge, presiding over the light in a sunless hell. Level 7. The Historical Architect. At Level 7, you begin to clean time. You don't just handle the traces of the present, you rewrite the past. You buy centuries-old archives. You edit textbooks. You ensure that historical figures who were inconvenient for your clients are recorded as traitors or madmen. You realize that as long as you control the past, you own the future. You live in a virtual reality of your own making. Everything around you is filtered and purified. You don't even observe the world directly anymore. You perceive it only through your algorithms and analyst reports. You have become the true God to the ultra-rich. They don't just ask you to erase their crimes, they beg you for immortality. A perfect, fabricated, heroic image left in the historical record. A single word from you can determine a family's social status for the next 100 years. However, this absolute control brings a psychological pressure that borders on collapse. You realize you are the sole load-bearing point of this massive system. If you crack, if a single sliver of weakness shows, this grand palace built on cleanups will vanish in an instant. You work 20 hours a day. You're afraid to close your eyes, terrified that in your sleep you might speak the one true thing. You have forgotten what is real. You even begin to suspect, were you manufactured by a higher-level cleaner yourself? Your body is aging, but your will must remain inhumanly cold. You are a headstone covered in lies, yet you must guard them as truth. You are a scribe, rewriting human memory in invisible ink. Level 8. The ghostly Will Level 8. The end and the beginning. You are no longer a person, not even a designation. You are a concept. You are that omnipresent force called oblivion that saturates the air of high society. You have no office, no bank accounts, no trace of physical existence. You live in the world's most advanced life support system, your consciousness linked to global cleanup stations via a quantum-encrypted network. You don't give orders anymore. Your will is the logic of the algorithm. When a mistake happens, the cleanup triggers automatically, requiring no human intervention. You have reached absolute deification. You look at the earth and don't see nations or people. You see a canvas covered in stains. Your only mission is to keep it clean. But at the summit of absolute power, you don't feel glory. You feel a bone-crushing, soul-shattering weariness. You realize you spent 40 years turning yourself from a man with a rag into a soulless machine. You won the game of power, only to find the prize is a silent wasteland. You start to miss it. The sharp scent of bleach, the tug of latex against skin, the reality of a life that felt a little sinful as you walk the morning streets after a job. You want to stop, but you can't, because the system has grown into your body. It relies on your will to function. If you stop, the global financial, political, and social orders will collapse in a single second under the weight of the truth. You are the world's ballast and its biggest lie. You feel an extreme silence. Suddenly, the monitor wall in front of you flickers. It's a low-level sensor in a remote area. You see it in the basement of a well-lit office building in an inconspicuous storage room. The door closes. A young man stands there. He is drenched in sweat, clutching a blood-stained rag. He is staring in horror at the stains on the floor, at the supervisor lying there whom he just accidentally killed. His phone rings. You look into his eyes and see yourself 40 years ago. The fragility, the greed, the terror of the future. One of your fingers trembles, just a fraction. You don't trigger the auto cleanup. You pick up an analog voice comm that has never been used. Don't move. Your voice, processed through layers of encryption, sounds ancient and cold. Breathe. Hold on to your rag. The young man freezes, pressing the phone to his ear with trembling hands. If you want to live, if you want to have everything, you continue, your voice heavy with a destined exhaustion, then follow my lead. From this moment on, you have no name. You have no country. The young man stops crying. A spark of desperation-born light flashes in his eyes. You watch him kneel and begin to clumsily scrub the first drop of blood. You close your eyes and let out a self-deprecating smile.